Yeah, so just to give kind of a real life walkthrough to get your head around, how we get a client from point A to point B, kind of put this together. This is our traditional client. They have a website, they're leveraging our TMS solution, and then they're sending that data outbound to a bunch of different vendors. If you're not familiar with these logos, that's a search. You can think of an ad network and a retargeter. My animation's a little bit different than my talk track. Sorry about that. So then, they want to take advantage of some email information and some database that they have. We'll call it cold storage, and they ask us about it. And so we explained to them that they could leverage our solution to onboard that information in and build a retargeting campaign off of that. And they thought that was really interesting. And so what we do is actually use that as the point to get them back to the story about the profile store and the unified view of the customer, and how that was almost one step. Why don't we add some more channels or investigate more opportunities for us to bring data into the system from different places and put it in for analysis. So again, it's really about always understanding their near-term objective with tying it back to UCB.
Yeah, so we have all these use case docs, right? Josh put together a lot of use case docs. The sales team seems to really like them. But when you look at these use case docs, we really encourage you to view them as starting points, right? The use case is not the start and end point. It's the starting point to get them to the profile store, to get them to start owning their cross-channel data and consistently adopting this new discipline. So again, use cases are the starting point.
Story starters, conversation starters.
Right.
And
versus this is what we do.
Right, and versus, hey, we're going to do this for
last year,
your fall campaign.
And
no more of that.
I think what we have to, as an organization, get comfortable with is we are never going to have a toolkit of use cases that's going to work for everybody. And what might work for one, online fire sale organization doesn't necessarily work for another. And so we are going to continually be building these use cases on the fly. So it's great to have them in context to how things work and different ways to leverage our system. But going back to discovery and how critical that is with our clients, especially the ones that we're really deep into, we have to listen to them in order to figure out what the next step would be.
Hey, Kelly.
Yeah.
Just curious, so in regards to, you mentioned the many use cases and sometimes having to explain to clients how to utilize our product and the need to go into this universal or unified customer view. I guess in regards to the slide, the example is the display campaign with AOL and wanting to have access to this first-party data. Are you finding that within these conversations that clients are either have to approach them and encourage them to move forward and work with the partners to send them this information and build campaigns off of it, or is it reverse where vendors, you're trying to sell them on that idea that, hey, you can leverage this information if you help us in pushing the clients to start pursuing more robust marketing strategies?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So two things I want to clarify, because you point out the AOL example. In this example, this is us embedding our pixel into the client's campaign with AOL to bring in campaign data into the mix of the context of customer information. But in regards to that question, we have entertained those conversations with vendors because vendors have started to bring some of those technology capabilities to clients. And what's been interesting is we've, in some cases, had to almost intersect client and vendor team going at creating some kind of a campaign without our technology, even though they can easily do it through our technology. So we have talked about approaching the ecosystem and working with vendors more seamlessly. In some cases, those vendors are really engaged with that conversation because they don't have the capability to do some of the cross-channel functionality. In other cases, they see it as somewhat of a competitive conflict. So it really is a case-by-case basis, and depending on who the vendor is and who the client is, more often than not, we work with the client to get the vendor to join in what we're trying to accomplish. the majority of our current clients, I will say, especially the ones that have been through conversations about Fuse, do loop us in first, and so it ends up being more of a joint conversation that we have with those vendors. But we have seen ourselves in situations where clients and vendors are trying to do something off in a siloed world and come back to us and ask for a specific type of integration that kind of cues us into, wait, what are you trying to accomplish? And then you know, explain to them that they could more easily accomplish it with our Fuse solution.
So the answer is it varies?
Yes. Or both.
Or both?
Both.
It's neither, both, or mix of both.
I hope
Was that helpful at all?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
There's way to
So
know.
we're going to say no.
No.